Captain Hyunwoo Kim stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The blue light cast strange shadows across his tired face as he studied the star charts for the 100th time that week. Something was wrong with the maps, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The exploration ship New Seoul drifted silently through space, its sensors scanning nearby star systems for new trade routes. Kim had been mapping space for 15 years, but this mission felt different. Every time he looked at the galactic charts, a nagging feeling grew in his chest. "Dr. Park, could you come to the bridge?" Kim spoke into his communicator. He needed a second opinion, and So-Young Park was the smartest person on the ship. Minutes later, Dr. Park entered the bridge with her usual quick steps. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a data pad filled with alien language samples. As the ship's expert on alien cultures, she spent most of her time trying to understand how other species thought. "What's keeping you up this time, Captain?" Park asked with a small smile. She knew Kim well enough to recognize his worried expression. "Look at this." Kim pointed to the holographic map. "Every official galactic chart ends right here." He traced his finger along an invisible line that seemed to surround human space. "Not just our maps. Every alien map we've collected does the same thing." Park leaned closer, her eyes following the boundary Kim had outlined. The maps showed detailed star systems, trade routes, and political borders throughout the galaxy. But at the edges of human territory, everything simply stopped. No partial data, no question marks, no unexplored regions marked for future study. Just nothing. "That is strange," Park admitted. "In my experience, most species love to show off how far they've explored. They mark every system they've visited, even if they found nothing interesting." Commander Jin-Ho Lee entered the bridge, his military uniform perfectly pressed despite being in space for 3 months. Lee handled security and military matters for their expedition. He was a practical man who preferred simple answers to complex problems. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from that Centauri trading vessel," Lee reported. "They're willing to exchange star charts for some of our Earth coffee." "Perfect timing," Kim said. "Let's see if their maps show the same pattern." An hour later, the 3 humans sat around the conference table with the new Centauri charts displayed before them. The alien maps were beautiful, showing star systems in colors that human eyes could barely see. But the pattern was identical. Every chart ended at the same invisible boundary around human space. "This can't be a coincidence," Park said, running her fingers through her hair. "I've studied 47 different alien cultures. They all use different mapping systems, different scales, different ways of marking territory. But they all stop mapping at exactly the same place." Lee frowned at the charts. "Maybe there's nothing beyond our space worth mapping. Empty systems, dead worlds, nothing valuable." "No." Kim shook his head. "Look at the star density scans. There are thousands of systems beyond this line. Many of them should have planets suitable for life. Any exploring species would at least check them out." Park pulled up her research files on the main screen. "I've been analyzing alien communications we've intercepted over the years. There are several phrases that keep appearing when they talk about directions or navigation." She highlighted specific words in various alien languages. This Centauri phrase translates roughly to "forbidden vectors." The Andromedan term means something like "paths not taken," and this Vulcan expression. It's hard to translate, but it suggests watching zones or guarded space. "Guarded by who?" Lee asked, his military instincts immediately alert. "That's what I want to know," Kim said. He stood up and walked to the observation window. Stars, stretched out in all directions, beautiful and mysterious. "Computer, show me our current position relative to the mapping boundary." A new display appeared, showing their ship as a small dot near the edge of the invisible line. Just 50 light-years ahead lay the unmapped region that no species seemed willing to explore. "I want to interview some of the alien traders we've met," Park said. "Maybe if I ask the right questions, they'll tell us more." Over the next few days, Park spoke with representatives from 6 different species. Each conversation followed the same pattern. The aliens were happy to discuss trade, politics, technology, and culture. But when Park mentioned the unmapped regions, beyond human space, they became uncomfortable. Some changed the subject, others made excuses to end the conversation. The breakthrough came when Park was talking to an old Centauri merchant named Vex High. He had been trading between star systems for over 200 years and had seen the rise of human space exploration. After sharing several drinks, his tongue loosened. "You humans are lucky," Vex High said in broken standard. "You got the safe zone, the protected area." "Protected from what?" Park asked carefully. Vex High's eyes darted around the room as if someone might be listening. "From the things that live in the deep dark, from the machines that still sing, from the places where reality bends." Before Park could ask more questions, Vex High suddenly sobered up. "I said too much. Forget old Vex High's words. Some knowledge is too dangerous for young species." That night, Kim couldn't sleep. He wandered the ship's corridors, thinking about Vex High's words. Protected area, safe zone. The phrases suggested that human space wasn't just unexplored by other species. It was deliberately avoided. He found himself in the ship's data core, where all their collected information was stored. Using his captain's access codes, he began searching through every piece of alien technology they had recovered over the years. Most of it was junk, broken sensors, damaged computer cores, worthless debris, but one item caught his attention. It was a data storage device they had found floating near an asteroid field 2 years ago. The technology was completely unknown, far more advanced than anything any current species possessed. Previous attempts to access it had failed, but Kim decided to try again. This time, something was different. The device activated with a soft hum, projecting a 3-dimensional star map unlike anything Kim had ever seen. The map showed the galaxy as it existed thousands of years ago, with star systems and civilizations that no longer existed. But most importantly, the ancient map extended far beyond the boundary that limited all modern charts. It showed systems, structures and pathways that reached deep into the unmapped regions. Whatever had created this map had explored far beyond where any current species dared to go. Kim stared at the ancient chart for hours, noting the locations of massive structures, built around distant stars. Some systems showed strange geometric patterns as if entire planets had been rearranged. Others displayed energy signatures that the computer couldn't identify. As dawn cycle began on the ship, Kim made a decision that would change everything. He called Dr. Park and Commander Lee to his quarters and showed them the ancient map. "We're going to investigate," he told them. "I don't care what's out there, or why everyone's afraid of it. Humanity didn't get to the stars by being cautious." Park and Lee exchanged worried glances, but they both nodded. They were explorers, and the greatest mystery in the galaxy was calling to them. Kim set course for the nearest system beyond the boundary, not knowing that their decision would uncover secrets that had been hidden for millions of years. The journey back to Terra Nova Station took 3 weeks. During that time, Captain Kim couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Ships appeared on their sensors, followed them for a few hours, then disappeared. None of them responded to communication attempts. Dr. Park spent the trip analyzing the ancient data device. The more she studied it, the more questions arose. The technology was beyond anything in the current galaxy, but it seemed designed to be eventually understood by less advanced species, almost like it was meant to be found. Commander Lee noticed that their navigation computers had started acting strangely. Course corrections were being made automatically, small adjustments that kept them on well-traveled trade routes. When he tried to override the system, it wouldn't respond. "Someone doesn't want us going off the beaten path," Lee told Kim privately. "Our own ship is steering us away from certain areas." Terra Nova Station hung in space like a massive metal flower, its petals spreading outward to accommodate ships from dozens of species. As the new Sol approached the docking bay, Kim felt a knot forming in his stomach. He knew that their discovery would change everything, but he wasn't prepared for what waited inside. Admiral Miran Choi was waiting in the docking bay when they disembarked. This was unusual. Admirals didn't normally greet returning exploration vessels personally. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her stood Ambassador Dong-hyun Yoon, the head of human diplomatic relations with alien species. Captain Kim, Dr. Park, Commander Lee, Admiral, Choi said formally. Please follow me, we have much to discuss. They were led to a secure conference room deep inside the station. The walls were lined with signal dampeners and privacy shields. Whatever they were about to discuss, no one outside this room would hear it. Before you say anything, Admiral Choi began, I want you to know that we're aware of your discovery, the ancient data device, the extended star maps, the conversations with alien traders. We've been monitoring your mission closely. Kim felt his anger rising. You've been spying on us? Protecting you, Ambassador Yoon corrected. Captain, what you've stumbled onto is classified information of the highest level. Information that could cause panic throughout human space if it became public knowledge. Dr. Park leaned forward. You already know about the mapping anomaly, don't you? You know why alien charts end at our borders. Admiral Choi nodded slowly. We've known for over 200 years, since the first human ships reached the outer systems and made contact with alien civilizations. We learned very quickly that there were certain areas of space we were not supposed to explore. Says who? Lee demanded. Who has the right to tell humanity where we can and can't go? It's not about rights, Commander, Yoon explained. It's about survival. When we first expanded into space, we expected to fight for territory. We expected wars, conflicts, the usual struggle for resources. Instead, we found something completely unexpected. Admiral Choi activated a holographic display showing the early days of human space exploration. Every alien species we encountered was helpful. They gave us star charts, showed us safe trade routes, helped us establish colonies, but only within specific boundaries. The display showed human expansion over 2 centuries. The growth followed clear patterns, guided by alien recommendations. Systems that humans might have naturally explored were marked as unsuitable or dangerous by their new alien friends. We thought we were lucky, Choi continued. We assumed we'd found the most hospitable regions of space. It took us decades to realize that our territory wasn't chosen by us. It was chosen for us. Park studied the historical data. The aliens were hurting us, keeping us in a specific area. More than that, Yoon said. Every attempt to establish settlements beyond the invisible boundaries was met with gentle but firm resistance. Alien governments would refuse to provide supplies for those colonies. Trade routes would mysteriously become unsafe. Ships would develop technical problems that forced them to turn back. Kim felt his worldview shifting. Are you saying we're prisoners? Guests, Admiral Choi corrected. Guests who are strongly encouraged to stay in certain rooms of the house. Lee's military training kicked in. What happens if we refuse to stay in our assigned area? What if we force our way past the boundaries? The room fell silent. Finally, Yoon spoke in a quiet voice. We've tried, Commander. Small exploration missions, heavily armed military vessels, even unmanned probes. Most never came back. The few that did, their crews were never the same. Admiral Choi pulled up classified files that made Kim's blood run cold. Mission reports from ships that had crossed the boundary and returned. Crews speaking about singing darkness and gardens made of bone. Experienced officers found in their quarters catatonic, drawing the same strange symbols over and over again. The symptoms are consistent, Choi explained. Severe psychological trauma, usually involving visions of impossible structures and entities that shouldn't exist. Most of the affected personnel never fully recovered. Dr. Park was studying the reports with growing horror. These descriptions, they're similar to what we found on the ancient data device. The strange structures, the geometric arrangements of planets. Which brings us to why you're here, Yoon said. That device contains information we've been trying to understand for decades, but every time our scientists studied it, they started showing the same symptoms as the boundary crossing crews. Kim realized the implications. You want us to study it because we've already been exposed. You've accessed the device and remained mentally stable, Admiral Choi confirmed. That makes you valuable and dangerous. Before anyone could respond, an alert chimed through the station's communication system. Admiral Choi to the diplomatic wing immediately. Priority 1. They were escorted to the diplomatic section of the station, where a delegation of Centauri officials was waiting. Kim recognized one of them as Kethvar, a trade representative he had met several times before. But Kethvar looked nervous, constantly glancing around as if expecting trouble. "Admiral," Kethvar said in his careful standard, "we must speak privately. My people have learned of certain activities by your exploration teams." "Admiral." Choi led Kethvar to a secure office while the others waited outside. Through the soundproof glass, they could see an intense conversation taking place. Kethvar was gesturing emphatically, while Admiral Choi's expression grew more serious by the minute. When the meeting ended, Kethvar approached Dr. Park directly. "You are the one who speaks our languages, yes? The one who asks questions about old maps and forbidden places?" Park nodded cautiously. Kethvar looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "My people respect humans. You are clever, brave, quick to learn. But some knowledge is too dangerous for young species. The galaxy is old and not all of its secrets are meant to be discovered." "What kind of secrets?" Park asked. "The kind that destroyed the species who came before," Kethvar whispered. "The kind that created the boundaries your people live within. There are protocols, established long before your species reached the stars. Protocols that have kept the galaxy safe for millions of years." Commander Lee stepped forward. "Safe from what?" Kethvar's eyes darted between them. "From the mistakes of those who thought they were wise enough to control forces beyond their understanding. From the remnants of civilizations that reached too far and fell too hard." Admiral Choi rejoined the group, her face grim. "Kethvar has informed me that word of your discovery has reached the Galactic Consortium. They're concerned." "Concerned? Enough to do what?" Kim asked. "Concerned enough to consider removing humanity from the protection of the protocols," Kethvar said quietly. "If your species continues to probe the boundaries, if you persist in seeking knowledge that was deliberately hidden, the consortium may decide that you're too dangerous to remain in the safe zones." The implications hit Kim like a physical blow. They'd exile us? Force us out of our own territory? "Into regions where the protocols don't apply," Kethvar confirmed. "Where the things that hunt in the darkness can find you. Where the machines that still sing their ancient songs might take notice of your existence." Dr. Park felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "The boundaries aren't keeping us in, they're keeping something else out." Kethvar nodded gravely. "Your species was placed in the protected zone for a reason, but protection only works if you stay within its limits." As the Centauri delegation departed, Kim stared out at the stars visible through the station's observation deck. Humanity had always believed they were explorers, pushing into the unknown and claiming it for themselves. Now he was learning that their entire civilization existed only at the mercy of forces they didn't understand. But as he watched ships from dozens of species docking at the station, trading and communicating peacefully, Kim began to wonder, if humanity was being protected, who had decided they were worth protecting? And what made them special enough to deserve their own safe zone in a galaxy full of ancient dangers? The questions multiplied in his mind, but one thing was becoming clear. The ancient data device hadn't found its way to them by accident. Someone or something wanted humanity to discover the truth about their situation. The only question was whether they were brave enough to handle what they might find. 3 days after the meeting with Kethvar, Captain Kim made a decision that would either save humanity or doom it. He was going to find answers, even if it meant disobeying direct orders from Admiral Choi. The Admiral had been clear. No more investigation into the boundary anomaly. The ancient data device was to be turned over to classified research teams. The new soul would return to standard exploration duties within approved space. But Kim couldn't accept that, not when so many questions remained unanswered. Dr. Park found him in the station's library, researching diplomatic protocols. "You're planning something dangerous, aren't you?" she said, sitting down across from him. "I'm planning something necessary," Kim replied. We need to talk to someone who was around when these protocols were established, someone old enough to remember why they exist. The Galactic Consortium homeworld, Park realized. You want to go to Vexar Prime? Kim nodded. Ambassador Yoon mentioned that the oldest member species of the consortium live there. If anyone knows the truth about our situation, it would be them. Commander Lee appeared beside their table, moving with the quiet steps that made him an effective security officer. I couldn't help overhearing. If you're planning an unauthorized mission to consortium space, you'll need backup. This could end our careers, Kim warned. Hell, it could end our lives. Then we better make sure we find something worth the risk, Lee said simply. Dr. Tai Min-jung joined their conspiracy the next day. As the station's expert on ancient alien technology, he had been studying reports from the few ships that had crossed the boundary and returned. His research had led him to develop a theory that terrified him. I think the boundaries aren't just diplomatic agreements, Jang explained as they met in Kim's quarters. I think they're maintained by technology, ancient technology that's still active after millions of years. He showed them his analysis of the data from boundary-crossing missions. Look at these readings. Ships that approached the forbidden zones detected massive energy signatures, not from any known source but from something built into the fabric of space itself. Senior engineer Hye-jin Ko had been listening from the doorway. As the person responsible for maintaining the new Soul's systems, she understood technology better than anyone else on the ship. I've been analyzing our navigation computers, Ko said, entering the room. The automatic course corrections we experienced weren't caused by our software. Something external was influencing our systems. Something that doesn't want ships traveling in certain directions. Kim looked around at his team. So we're all in agreement? We're going to Vexar Prime to find answers, regardless of what Admiral Choi ordered? They all nodded, though Kim could see the fear in their eyes. They were about to risk everything on the chance that an ancient alien species would tell them the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. The journey to Vexar Prime took 2 weeks. They traveled under the cover of a diplomatic mission using credentials that Ambassador Yoon had reluctantly provided. Yoon had made it clear that if they were caught investigating forbidden topics, the human government would disavow all knowledge of their mission. Vexar Prime was unlike any world Kim had ever seen. The planet's surface was covered with structures that seemed to grow rather than being built. Crystalline towers spiraled into the sky, connected by bridges that defied gravity. The Vexari were one of the oldest known species in the galaxy, and their homeworld showed it. Council Prime Vexthul received them in a chamber that existed partially outside normal space. The walls showed glimpses of other dimensions, other realities that made Kim's eyes water if he looked too long. Vexthul himself was ancient beyond human comprehension, his crystalline body containing memories that spanned 50,000 years. Young humans, Vexthul said in a voice like singing crystals. You come seeking knowledge of the deep protocols, knowledge that has been hidden for good reason. Dr. Park stepped forward, using her diplomatic training to show proper respect. Council, Prime, our species has stumbled upon evidence of ancient mapping restrictions. We seek to understand why these boundaries exist. Vexthul's form shifted, showing emotions that had no human equivalent. The protocols exist because the alternative is extinction. Not just for your species, but for all life in this galaxy. The chamber around them changed, showing images from the deep past. Ancient civilizations that had reached across the stars, building wonders that modern species could barely imagine. But then the images turned dark, showing those same civilizations falling into madness and chaos. Long ago, there lived a species called the Architects, Vexthul explained. They achieved technological mastery beyond anything that exists today. They could reshape matter with thought, travel between dimensions, create life itself. In their wisdom, they decided to share their knowledge with every species in the galaxy. Kim felt a chill run down his spine. What happened? Catastrophe, beyond description, Vexthul replied. The Architects believed that all species were ready for transcendence. They were wrong. Some species used the advanced technology to become predators that consumed entire star systems. Others became so powerful that they began tearing holes in reality itself, allowing things from outside our universe to enter. The images showed cosmic horrors that Kim's mind could barely process. Entities made of pure entropy that devoured stars. Machine intelligences that converted entire planets into processing centers for incomprehensible calculations. Biological nightmares that spread across space like a plague, converting all matter into extensions of their alien consciousness. The architects realized their mistake too late, Vexithul continued. They spent their final centuries trying to contain the disasters they had unleashed. They built barriers between dimensions, created quarantine zones around the most dangerous regions, and established protocols to prevent any species from repeating their errors. Dr. Jiang was frantically taking notes, his scientific mind struggling to process the implications. The forbidden zones beyond our space, they contain the remnants of these failed experiments? Some contain failed experiments, Vexthul confirmed. Others contain successful ones that are too dangerous to be allowed freedom. The architects were thorough in their final work. They created guardians to maintain the barriers, automated systems to enforce the quarantine zones, and safeguards to prevent any species from accessing their most dangerous technologies. Commander Lee asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Where do humans fit into this? Why were we placed in a protected zone? Vexthul's form brightened, showing what might have been surprise. You were not placed there, young warrior. You evolved there. The region you call human space was one of the few areas that the architects left completely untouched, a sanctuary where natural evolution could proceed without interference. The revelation hit Kim like a physical blow. Are you saying we're living in a nature preserve? In a sense, yes, Vexthul replied. But perhaps not in the way you imagine. The architects believed that their greatest failure was trying to uplift species before they were ready. In their final act, they designated certain regions as emergence zones, where species would be allowed to develop naturally, without outside interference. Park was beginning to understand. And when a species in an emergent zone achieved spaceflight, they would be evaluated, tested to see if they were ready for greater knowledge. Exactly, Vexthul confirmed. Your species has been under observation since you first left your homeworld. Every interaction with other species, every decision your leaders have made, every choice your explorers have faced, all of it has been carefully monitored. The chamber filled with new images showing human history from an alien perspective. First contact with various species, negotiations over trade routes, responses to crises and conflicts. But now Kim could see the hidden patterns, the subtle tests, that had been woven into every encounter. The other species that helped us expand, Kim realized. They were part of the evaluation process. Willing participants, Vexthul agreed. Species that had passed their own evaluations and accepted the responsibility of testing newer civilizations. The Centauri, the Andromedans, the Vulcans, all of them were once where humanity is now. Engineer Ko had a practical question. What determines whether a species passes or fails? The same thing that determined the architect's failure, Vexthul replied. Wisdom. The ability to understand that power without restraint leads to destruction. That knowledge shared too freely becomes a weapon. That true advancement comes not from what you can do, but from understanding what you should not do. Lee crossed his arms. And if we fail this test? The images around them shifted to show darker possibilities. Human space being slowly isolated, trade routes closing, colonies being evacuated under various pretexts, humanity being gently but firmly pushed back to their homeworld, left to develop in isolation until they either achieved wisdom or destroyed themselves. But if we pass, Park asked, then you join the community of guardian species, Vexthul said. You help maintain the protocols, guide younger species through their own evaluations, and work to ensure that the architect's mistakes are never repeated. Kim stared at the swirling images of cosmic responsibility. How many species have been tested? Thousands, Vexthul replied. Most fail, not through malice but through impatience. They want power before against all protocols and direct orders. Captain Kim made the decision that would change the course of human history. Using the navigation data stolen from Consortium archives, the new soul crossed the forbidden boundary into the regions that galactic civilization had avoided for millions of years. The moment they passed beyond the invisible line, everything changed. Dr. Yeon Seo-ham, the ship's expert on alien biology, was the first to notice the anomalies. "Captain, I'm detecting massive biosignatures ahead, but they don't match any known form of life." The readings on her instruments made no sense. The signatures were enormous, spanning entire star systems, but they moved and pulsed like living things. Whatever was out there existed on a scale that biology couldn't explain. Chief Pilot Sung-Min Cha reported from the helm that their ship's systems were behaving strangely. "Sir, our engines are running at 300% efficiency. I haven't touched the controls, but we're moving faster than should be possible." Engineer Ko confirmed the impossible readings. The ship's computers are processing data at rates that should burn out their circuits, but instead of overheating, they're actually running cooler than normal. Kim stared at the sensor displays, watching as they approached their destination. The star system ahead looked normal from a distance, but as they got closer, the true scope of what lay before them became clear. Structures surrounded the central star, but they weren't space stations in any conventional sense. They were constructions the size of planets, geometric shapes that captured and redirected the star's energy in patterns too complex for human minds to fully grasp. Some of the structures appeared to be rotating in directions that shouldn't exist in normal space. "Those aren't buildings," Dr. Park whispered, staring at the massive constructions. "They're machines that have been running for millions of years." As they moved deeper into the system, they began to encounter other anomalies. Planets had been moved from their natural orbits and arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Moons had been reshaped into crystalline forms that resonated with energies the ship's sensors couldn't identify. Dr. Ham's biological readings were becoming more disturbing by the hour. "I'm detecting what appears to be plant life covering an entire planet, but the growth patterns are mathematical, following equations I've never seen before. It's as if someone taught biology to think like a computer." Commander Lee was monitoring their defensive systems, but the readings made him nervous. "Captain, we're not detecting any threats, but we're also not detecting anything that makes sense. Some of these energy signatures are coming from inside solid matter. Others are moving faster than light, but somehow staying in one place." Kim knew they were in over their heads, but they had come too far to turn back. "Dr. Yang, any theories about what we're seeing?" The physicist was studying the sensor data with growing excitement and terror. "I think we're looking at technology that operates on principles beyond our current understanding. These structures aren't just advanced. They're working with fundamental forces that we haven't discovered yet." As they approached the largest structure in the system, something unprecedented happened. A section of the new Soul's hull simply opened, creating a docking bay where none had existed before. The ship's systems calmly announced that docking procedures were beginning, despite the fact that no one had given such orders. "Should we resist?" Lee asked, his hand hovering over the emergency controls. Kim made another decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "No. Whatever's doing this could have destroyed us by now if it wanted to. Let's see what it wants to show us." The ship docked itself inside a structure that defied description. The walls seemed to be made of crystallized space itself, showing glimpses of distant galaxies and other dimensions. Gravity worked in different directions depending on where you stood, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. They were greeted by something that had once been alive, but now existed as pure consciousness. It introduced itself as a remnant, the last surviving awareness of the species that had built all of this. "Welcome, inheritors," the remnant said, its voice somehow speaking directly into their minds. "I have been waiting for your species to find this place for a very long time." Dr. Park found her voice first. "You're one of the architects." "I am what remains of them," the remnant replied. "When my people realized the magnitude of their mistakes, most chose to end their existence rather than witness the consequences. I remained to guard this place and to wait for a species that might prove worthy of our legacy. Kim looked around at the impossible architecture surrounding them. Worthy of what? Of learning from our failures without repeating them, the remnant explained. Come, let me show you what we accomplished, and what it cost us. The structure around them shifted, becoming a vast museum of cosmic history. They saw the rise of the architects from a humble species to masters of reality itself. They witnessed the development of technologies that could reshape matter, manipulate time, and bridge the gaps between dimensions. We believed we were wise. The remnant continued. We had achieved everything we thought possible. We could create life, destroy death, travel anywhere in space or time. In our arrogance, we decided that every species in the galaxy deserved to share our achievements. The museum showed them the architect's great project, the simultaneous uplifting of thousands of species across the galaxy. Technologies beyond imagination were shared freely, believing that all intelligent life would use such gifts responsibly. Dr. Ham watched in horror as the museum showed the results. Species that couldn't handle advanced biotechnology mutated into cosmic horrors that consumed everything in their path. Civilizations given control over fundamental forces used them to wage wars that destroyed entire sectors of space. The worst were those who transcended properly, the remnant said sadly. Species that successfully used our gifts to evolve beyond physical existence. They became so powerful that they began treating reality itself as a plaything, creating and destroying universes for their entertainment. Engineer Ko was studying the technology around them, her practical mind trying to understand how any of it worked. How did you stop them? We didn't stop them, the remnant replied. We contained them. My people spent their final centuries building barriers to limit the damage. We created quarantine zones around the most dangerous regions, established automated systems to maintain those barriers, and developed protocols to prevent any species from accessing technologies they weren't ready for. The museum showed them the great works of containment. Entire star systems encased in dimensional barriers, cosmic entities trapped in loops of space-time that would hold them for eternity. Technologies hidden in pocket dimensions that would only open for species that had proven their wisdom. Dr. Yang was fascinated by the science behind it all. The mapping boundaries around human space, those are part of your containment system. One small part of a galaxy-wide network of safeguards, the remnant confirmed. But perhaps the most important part, the regions beyond your space contain both our greatest achievements and our most terrible failures. Technologies that could elevate your species to godhood or destroy reality itself. Commander Lee asked the practical question, why are you showing us this? What do you want from humanity? The remnant's presence grew more intense, and Kim could feel something like hope emanating from the ancient consciousness. Because your species shows something that mine never possessed, the wisdom to question whether power should be used, not just whether it can be. The museum around them shifted to show human history from the architect's perspective. Every major decision, every crisis, every choice that had shaped humanity's development was displayed and analyzed. Other species have been tested for millions of years, the remnant explained. Most seek power for its own sake. They want to transcend their limitations to become more than they are, but humans consistently choose differently. The displays showed examples that made Kim proud of his species. Humans who chose to share resources rather than hoard them. Leaders who accepted limitations on their power for the greater good. Scientists who refused to pursue research that might be dangerous even when it could benefit humanity. But you also show the same curiosity that led to our downfall, the remnant warned. The desire to explore, to learn, to push beyond every boundary you encounter. The question is whether you can learn to balance that curiosity with wisdom. Dr. Park was beginning to understand the scope of what they were being offered. You want us to become the new guardians, to take over maintaining the barriers your people built, not just maintain them, the remnant replied. Improve them. My people's solution was to hide dangerous knowledge forever. But that approach is flawed. Hidden knowledge eventually gets discovered, and when it does, the discoverers are usually unprepared for it. The museum showed them a different approach, Instead of hiding dangerous technologies, they could be revealed gradually to species that had proven their readiness. Instead of permanent quarantine zones, there could be supervised exploration of dangerous regions. Your species has the potential to succeed where we failed, the remnant said. But only if you can receive. 6 months had passed in normal space, but for the crew of the New Soul, only 3 days had gone by since entering the architect's structure. Time moved differently in the regions beyond the boundary, flowing like a river with currents that human science couldn't explain. Captain Yunji Seo commanded the rescue fleet that had been sent to find Kim's missing ship. She was a veteran explorer herself, known for her ability to think clearly under pressure. When the New Soul had failed to report for 6 months, Admiral Choi had personally chosen SEO to lead the search mission. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures ahead, reported Dr. Woojin Lim, the fleet's specialist in temporal mechanics. The readings suggest severe space-time distortions in this region. Captain Seo studied the sensor data from the bridge of her flagship, the Busan. 5 ships under her command had crossed the forbidden boundary, following the New Soul's last known trajectory. What they found challenged everything they thought they knew about physics. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the New Soul, her communications officer reported. But according to their timestamps, they sent it 3 days ago, not 6 months. SEO frowned at the impossible data. Put them through. Captain Kim's face appeared on the screen, but something was different about him. His eyes held a depth of knowledge that hadn't been there before, as if he had aged years in those 3 days. Captain Seo, I'm glad you found us, Kim said. But I need to warn you, approaching our position may be dangerous. We're currently undergoing what the remnant calls the evaluation. The what? SEO asked. But before Kim could answer, reality around the rescue fleet began to shift. The space around each ship transformed into something that looked like a vast testing chamber. Crew members found themselves facing scenarios that seemed impossible, but felt completely real. Each person was confronted with situations designed to reveal their deepest nature and their species' true character. Captain Seo found herself standing in a recreation of Earth's solar system, but with a critical difference. A massive asteroid was heading directly for Earth, and she had the power to stop it. But saving Earth would require destroying a space station full of alien refugees who had nowhere else to go. Choose, a voice said in her mind. Save your homeworld, or save those who have trusted you with their lives. Meanwhile, Dr. Lim was facing his own test. He stood in a laboratory where he could access technology that would solve every energy crisis humanity had ever faced. But using it would require him to experiment on living beings from other species, causing them pain, but potentially saving billions of lives. On the New Soul, Commander Lee was reliving every military decision he had ever made, but with perfect knowledge of their long-term consequences. He could see how his choices had affected not just immediate battles, but the course of interstellar relations for decades to come. Dr. Park found herself in a library containing all the knowledge in the galaxy. She could learn anything, understand everything, gain wisdom beyond imagination. But each piece of knowledge she accessed would be taken away from another species, leaving them ignorant and vulnerable. Engineer Ko was given control of a massive engineering project that could reshape an entire star system. She could create paradise for billions of beings, but only by stripping resources from worlds where other species lived, condemning them to poverty and hardship. The remnant observed each test carefully, its ancient consciousness analyzing every choice, every hesitation, every moment of moral struggle. This was how the architects had failed their own evaluation millions of years ago, by choosing power over responsibility, knowledge over wisdom, advancement over restraint. But humanity was showing something different. Captain Seo refused to save Earth at the cost of innocent alien lives. Instead, she spent hours trying to find a third option, eventually discovering a way to evacuate both Earth and the space station by coordinating with other ships in the fleet. Dr. Lim walked away from the advanced technology, choosing instead to search for solutions that didn't require causing pain to other beings. Even when told that billions might die without the energy source he was rejecting, He held firm to his principles. Commander Lee made different choices in his military scenarios, accepting tactical losses in order to preserve civilian lives. Chose strategies that built trust with alien species, rather than demonstrating human superiority. Dr. Park limited herself to knowledge that she could share freely with others, turning away from information that would give humanity unfair advantages over other species. She chose understanding over power, wisdom over raw intelligence. Engineer Co designed her projects to benefit all species in the region, even when it meant accepting less efficient solutions. She chose sustainable development over impressive, but destructive achievements. The Remnant was fascinated by these choices. Your species consistently sacrifices advantage in favor of ethical behavior. This is unusual. Kim, who had been watching his crew's evaluations, felt a mixture of pride and concern. Is that good or bad for the test? It is what we hoped for, the Remnant replied. But it also presents a challenge. The responsibility we offer requires making decisions that affect entire civilizations. Sometimes the ethical choice for one species means hardship for another. Can humanity handle that burden? The tests evolved, becoming more complex and morally ambiguous. Crew members were forced to choose between competing goods rather than obvious right and wrong. They had to decide which species deserved resources when there wasn't enough for everyone. They had to determine when intervention was helpful and when it was harmful interference. Captain Seo found herself managing a crisis where 5 different species were fighting over the same habitable planet. Each species had legitimate claims and desperate needs. There was no solution that would satisfy everyone, no choice that wouldn't cause suffering for some. Dr. Ham faced a biological crisis where she could save a dying species, but only by using a virus that would make other species in the region sterile. The choice was between allowing one species to go extinct or potentially ending the reproductive future of several others. These scenarios tested not just individual morality, but humanity's capacity for the kind of complex long-term thinking that cosmic guardianship would require. The Remnant was looking for evidence that humans could make difficult decisions without being paralyzed by their consequences. What impressed the ancient consciousness was not that humans always made perfect choices, but that they approached each decision with genuine consideration for all affected parties. They sought creative solutions, consulted with others, and accepted responsibility for the outcomes of their choices. Your species shows remarkable consistency, the Remnant observed. Individual humans may make different choices, but they share common values that guide their decision-making. This is essential for species-level responsibility. Dr. Lim had a crucial realization during his tests. The scenarios keep getting harder because you're not just testing our morality. You're training us to think on a cosmic scale. Precisely, the Remnant confirmed. The decisions that galactic guardians must make don't have clear right and wrong answers. They require balancing competing needs, accepting difficult trade-offs, and living with the consequences of choices that affect billions of lives. As the evaluations continued, the crew began to understand the scope of responsibility they were being offered. They saw simulations of the choices that previous guardian species had made, some successful, others disastrous. They learned about species that had been gently guided away from dangerous technologies, and others that had been allowed to develop naturally, even when it led to conflict. Engineer Co asked the question that was troubling all of them. How do we know when we're helping and when we're interfering? How do we decide what other species should be allowed to discover? That is the eternal question of guardianship, the Remnant replied. There are guidelines, protocols developed over millions of years. But ultimately, each situation requires wisdom, compassion, and the courage to act despite uncertainty. Captain Kim realized that the evaluation was nearing its end. The scenarios were becoming less frequent, and the Remnant's attention seemed focused on analyzing their responses rather than presenting new challenges. Have we passed? Kim asked. Your species has shown remarkable potential, the Remnant replied. But the evaluation is not conducted by me alone. Every choice your people have made is being analyzed by the network of safeguards that my people built. The automated systems that maintain the galactic barriers are designed to recognize species worthy of guardianship. As if summoned by the remnant's words, new presences made themselves known. The consciousness of every guardian species that had ever accepted cosmic responsibility was somehow present, observing and judging humanity's performance. The Vexari, the Centauri, the Andromedans, and dozens of other species that Kim had never heard of were all part of an ancient collective dedicated to maintaining galactic stability. They had all faced similar evaluations, all proven their worth through difficult choices and moral courage. The young humans show promise, came the collective judgment. They possess the wisdom to restrain their own power, the compassion to consider the needs of others, and the strength to accept difficult responsibilities.